So why don't managers do checklists or like checklists? What's the issue?
Oh,
Lazy, tired, overworked, burnt out, underpaid?
yes. And then no, I think what it is, honestly, is people feel like, man, I have worked here for 20 years. I've been a restaurant manager. I've been working in restaurants since I was 14 years old. That's me, right? I know how to run restaurants. And they go, okay, so I don't need a checklist to tell me what I already know. The problem is that the checklist isn't telling you what you already know. The checklist is just reminding you to double check things that we know are important, right? And so there's a lot of ego in there. And I would also say that the reason why people hate checklists so much is that in the past, when you could only do them on paper, which is like paper is still my biggest competitor, by the way,
Yeah, yeah.
but like, when like they started doing checklists in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was always like they had no way of knowing what was happening operationally in their business in real time. So instead, they focused on training because they could control that. We'll train the hell out of everybody. We'll give them a ton of paper checklists, but there was no easy way to go in and look at those checklists to see that people were doing them, to hold them accountable to doing them. All the data left on them was just like, I knew of a guy who like every 6 months a shredder truck pulls up and they throw all their checklists in it. So it's like you basically told the person, this is useless. I don't care about it. I don't ask about it. I don't check it. You don't use the data for anything. But yet you make me do this all the time and I get dinged on my audit when I haven't done them. So they sent mixed messages. These are important. You should do them, but I'll never look at them, never use the data, never do anything. So people were like, dude, why am I wasting my time doing this when there's 100 other things I need to do right now? Right. So then it just became this thing where they add zero value. And I don't blame the people in the restaurants or any business for feeling that way if you're doing them on paper. But when you flip them to digital, now we're actually able to collect data. We can identify problems we didn't even know we had. You can actually get your voice heard by corporate by just filling the thing out. So it's a completely different world, but we're battling that old sort of, this is a waste of my time. And I'll be honest, when I was a restaurant manager before I owned this company, I was like, I'm not doing that. I gotta call 50 waiters and get them in here. So I'm good. I'll let someone else handle that. Hey, it's Tommy Yionoulis, one of the founders here at OpsAnalyitica. And unfortunately for you, you're listening to another episode of the SAASholes.
Welcome to SAASholes. With decades of making interesting decisions, Jamie and Pete are dedicated to helping aspiring sales leaders accelerate revenues with their no BS approach and tactics. Our show is supported by listeners and viewers just like you. We'd like to thank Demand Farm Winalytics, Trent S., and Aaron J. for their continued support. DemandFarm.com, unlock key account growth, smart software to bring account planning and relationship intelligence into your CRM, making key account management practice data-driven, predictable, and scalable. Go to DemandFarm.com, ask for Iron Man. Hey, check out Brent Keltner's Revenue Acceleration Playbook Masterclass at Winalytics.com. In 8 weeks, help your sales and go-to-market team start to build the mindset and skills needed to succeed in a new buyer environment. Sign your team up for the masterclass today at Winalytics.com. If you'd like to help us out to improve the quality of our content, go to patreon.com/SAASholes. Hey, we got some shout-outs. Jessica Segura got a new gig as professional recruiter at Bon Secours Mercy Health. Dan McFerrin, new gig at Consumer Insights Lead at Agency Solutions at 84.51 Degrees. Pete Browerman, 5 years at SAP. Brian Surt, new position, Sales Account Manager at Aon. Eric Allen, new gig, Enterprise Account Exec at Twilio. Vernon Young, 5 years at Ford Motor Company. Mark Blozis, 9 years at WR Malakar Company. Eric Alvarez, 3 years at LogicGate. Jeff Cleesby, 3 years at Infuse Media. Mr. Dave Burkus, 15 years at 4 portfolio companies. Amber Clark, 7 years at Software AG. Pat Gleason got a new gig as Director of Operations at IGT Logistics Incorporated. And then we have some birthdays. Happy birthday, Mackenzie Maitland, Bruce Himmelblau, Natalia Grigoriev, Daniel Scove, Molly Bendel, and Jen Igartois. Tommy, what is OpsAnalyitica?
So we are an operations analytics platform, right? So all we focus on is helping our clients manage and measure their field operations and their team operations. So like a POS system in a business is going to manage sales and track product mix and help you, take in money and everything. We're all about there's no repeatable business in the world that doesn't have a bunch of procedures, right? And we are just all about helping big multi-location organizations manage those procedures, make sure that people are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing so that we can have the highest sales, highest profits, highest customer satisfaction possible.
So you make checklists easier without paper, is that right?
Yeah, yes, we do. But I think it's more than we make the checklist in the platform, but really what we try to do is take the guesswork out of running the business, right? Because what happened was, if you look at this business today and you look at the same business in 1980, the difference is today's version of it is 100 times more complicated because now every manager is running another 30 apps on top of all the stuff they needed to do in 1980. And so they forget things, and people don't pay as much attention, and there's not as much pride in a lot of times people's work, and they're distracted by phones and the internet and blah 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 blah. And all of a sudden you just start to miss little things that you've already identified you need to do to take care of people, to be fast, to be clean, to maximize your sales opportunity every shift. And you start missing them. And that's the whole purpose of these checklists. It's not to be big brothery. It's to go, hey, dude, if you don't turn the open sign on, then someone might drive by and think we're not open, right? If you don't have the music on, we don't get the ambiance we want. If you don't thaw the burger patties, then it takes 4 minutes to cook one versus 2. And the line at the drive-thru is so long, people drive by. It's just all the little death by 1,000 cut things that are killing everyone's business because people suck. And then you're just going, you're just driving yourself crazy, right?
So how does this work with the little checklist in the washroom when the guy's got to go in there and sign it and date it?
Every time I go to a place, I take a picture of those because I want to put them all on a blog. Yeah, that's legitimately it. But that's a thing, where they're trying to show you, hey, we know the bathroom is important. In most restaurants, the bathroom is one of the key things, right? We know. So in our system, everything's scheduled out. You just go in and it just says, oh, at 2:00, you got to do a bathroom check. At 3:00, you got to do this check. At 5, you got to do a line check. And then it just takes the guesswork out of everything.
Well, expect what you inspect, right? Or inspect what you expect. And if you're the owner and you want to, cameras have helped in the businesses, right? Cameras have helped. The electronics has helped. Walk me through an opening manager coming through, how do they use your product, and how does that make it easier for the owner that cares to take a look at it?
Yeah, and that's really what it's about too. It's the absentee owner. It's the guy who's got 20 restaurants and can't be in all of them all the time, right? You cannot, every business has to focus on consistency and brand execution, right? That's it. You have to be hey, our advertising and how we market our business sets the standard for the kind of service you're going to get. Whether you're Ruth's Chris or you're Tommy's Sub Shop, that's just got a case of meat and good Italian meatballs and all that kind of stuff, right? Doesn't matter. Your marketing sets a tone. Then what people expect is that they come into your building, it's clean and presentable and nice. They expect that you're going to give them exactly what you've promised you're going to give them when they pay you money. So you execute your product. And then finally, you're going to get it as quick as the occasion calls for. So obviously, Ruth's Chris is a 2-hour, 3-hour dinner. Tommy's Sub Shop should be 10 minutes, right? That's what they want from you. They don't even need you to be nice to them if you do those three things. Like if you're clean, you're fast, and you do what you say you're going to do. So that's all they want from your business. And the checklist, so a manager comes in first thing in the morning, they're going to grab their tablet in the restaurant, or they're going to whip out their phone. Most places have a tablet now, it seems like, because they get it through label printing or DoorDash or somebody. So they have a tablet. They open up OpsAnalyitica, and right there at the top is just going to be their calendar for the day, right? Their schedule. And so then they're going to have an opening checklist dim by 9. And then they're going to have a line check, which is like a food safety check by 11, and a tasting check. And so they just look at their schedule for the day. And we have all kinds of schedules. So this might be Wednesday. So it's now hood vents day too. So now mentally you can go, okay, we got to do hood vents tonight because it's on Wednesday. They just click a button and it opens up a checklist, and it just takes them through all the little things they need to go check. And invariably, like a human brain can only keep 4 or 5 items in there at any given time. Like that's as much of our list tracking capability. And so, there might be 20 or 30 items on there, just all the little things you need to go check. Are there paper towels in the bathroom? Is there soap in the bathroom? Has the toilet been cleaned? Is there hand soap by the hand sink? Did you check the back door? Did you get the bread order? All the little things that you just need to mentally go through. So that's what we're talking about. It's just hitting those little items that you have to go do. And I just think of it as like controlling what you're supposed to control. The economy, COVID, employers, like the government, everybody's messing with business right now, it feels like, right? And the issue is like, okay, that's happening and it's bad, but like we can't get bogged down by that. We have to let that go on a daily basis and just focus on what we can control, because that's all we can do. Because we have inflation, we're having a hard time finding employees. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares, because we're still charging full price or even more than full price than what people were used to paying, right? And those people expect the service, the cleanliness, and the product execution, and they don't care either. So you just got to control what you can control, and that just takes disciplined managers following systems, and that's all it takes. And you can pull ahead of all your competitors if you just execute, right? Mm-hmm. Those 3 things. It's crazy.
Tommy, I'm in Chicago. Where are you at?
I'm in south of Denver, but I lived in Chicago for a while.
Oh, okay. Then are you familiar with Gibson's?
Yes, I love Gibson's.
Old school friend of mine works there, and I don't know if your product's in there or not. Let's just talk about how would you get into, let's talk about the process, eating your own dog food. How would you use OpsAnalyitica to get into that, to follow the checklist? Did I make a phone call? Did I send an email? How would you guys use that? And how would you sell it to Gibson's?
So by the way, we talked to Gibson's twice over the last 5 years. And I think they went with somebody else, but we did talk to them because they were expanding. So, and I love Gibson's. There's one right off of it's right by Wrigleyville. It's in between Wrigleyville and by DePaul, because that's the one I know. But so here's the deal. So if I'm a chain restaurant or chain of anything, we have dental offices, we've got oil change places, doesn't matter, multi-location business. If I'm the guy who's managing those things, the idea about this is that we kind of build something and then we fire and forget it, right? So we go through and we load all these checklists up and we put them out to the locations, and then we can get notifications when people aren't doing them correctly, real time, hey, this thing's late. So you can literally be, let's say you're the district manager and you run 10 stores. You can be in one store helping a manager being there for that day, kind of your day in that store. And you can literally get notified on your phone. Hey man, this guy's struggling over here. You can be firing off text messages. So you're literally able to be in every location sort of simultaneously from an operations perspective. So you can be following up, offering help, seeing what's going on while you're sitting in another building working with that manager. And that's really a huge part of this, because in the past, if you manage multi-location businesses, there was no easy way to understand how those businesses were operating kind of in real time, or even within a weekly, monthly basis, because you couldn't be in them simultaneously, right? So what happened is you would look at other KPIs to figure out what was happening. So you look at sales, right? sales is obviously great, but then you want to look at food cost. In a restaurant, you'd be looking at costs, right? Food costs, labor costs, beverage costs, paper costs. You're going to look at your customer satisfaction number if you've got some sort of way of tracking that, like a survey system or something. But I mean, realistically, with customer satisfaction, it's the craziest, most pissed off 5% and the happiest 5%, and the middle 90 just don't even bother, right? So you're getting skewed results. And then you might look at if you had like health inspections from the city or some third-party auditor, and then you would try to use all those KPIs to back into, is this place doing well or not, right? The problem is they're all lagging indicators of actual ops. So if you're operating, like, that's what we need to track, not what happened with sales. I mean, you could have the best location. You could be at an airport, like you could be at Midway, where you're going to get guaranteed 5 million a year because you're just in Midway. But you could be the worst restaurant in Midway, but nobody knows because they all come through one time a year. And so they just keep, and then next year they forgot that you suck. And then you're just back again and you're just capturing insanity revenue. But it doesn't mean you're good. Doesn't mean you're not getting people sick. Doesn't mean that you're displaying the brand well. You just happen to be in this psychopath location where millions of people walk by. So, I mean,
I know you haven't done it yet, but it seems to me like in sales operations, just in the regular corporate world, you could have, hey, did the sales rep show up for training? Did they right? And if you're a chief revenue officer or your sales VP, you can get your list, coming in saying, all right, here's who showed up. Like you said, people are scared about being big brother, but they're also scared about not hitting their numbers. Did they log in? Did they, if they're going to the office, did the key card get tagged? All that stuff. So
there's so many white collar applications for this, especially for consultants and salespeople. Like,
talk to me.
Manage all the stages of the deals. Did you identify pain, right? Like, are you managing the deal correctly? Because if because all these guys, they just want to jump from like, hey, I had a quick intro to let's do a pilot. And you're like, no, dude, you don't know who's buying this thing. You don't have budget. You don't have any of this stuff. Like, go get that stuff figured out before you come wasting my time about doing a pilot, because this guy's not going to buy because you have no levers to pull,
Well, you get all the corporate guys that are watching and listening right now saying, hey man, we're not a restaurant. We're not that, we're not that ancient. I can just use, my reminders. I can use this. What do you say to them?
The thing about reminders is that they're all singular in focus. And I use the reminders app too for work stuff, right? Just because I can Siri into it. And I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But they're all singular focus, but like that doesn't work when you have a complex business process. Are you going to create 47 reminders in order so that you capture all the things you need to capture? That's the beauty of a checklist, as a checklist is 20 or 30 reminders hooked together into one entity. And I would tell all your corporate guys, if they're just like, if you're flying a lot or you're stuck in traffic, you like Audible, go get Atul Gawande's The Checklist Manifesto and listen to that.
Say that again. I haven't heard of that. Atul what?
Oh, his name's Atul Gawande. He's a ATULGWANDE. He is a Harvard surgeon. And I think he was tapped by Amazon to run their healthcare business. And it's called the Checklist Manifesto. And it's a wonderful, easy listen. And it just goes through the history of checklists. But he specifically is talking about it from this idea of what they call the safe surgery checklist, which was they had all these surgeons that were basically out there and they were seeing these high infection rates and all these things. And they were going, how can we make surgery safer? And then they realized there's like 7 steps that they have to do pre-surgery. And if they miss any one of those steps, it can lead to a higher incidence of infection, mistakes, whatever. And it's like dumb stuff, like forgetting to put the iodine on the wound area before you drape the wound. And you miss that one thing, and like infection and death go up, like the percentage goes through the roof. And they were going, okay, we need to do this for like third world surgery, right? That's what they were thinking. And it's his whole story of how checklists were invented in the Army, Air Force. And, they talk a little bit about restaurants, but great listen. And it will change your world on checklists, because the numbers they were seeing when they implemented it and the fight they were getting from the surgeons. And he had a great point too. He's like, you're never going to find a group of people like, so the big complaint with checklists are like, well, they're not effective, right? Or, we just need more training or better employees or whatever. And he was like, that's bull. The human brain cannot keep up with the amount of detail we need it to track. And he's like, you're never going to find a group of people that are more educated, more highly paid, or more specialized than surgeons. So if it's helping them, it's going to help everybody, right?
Tommy, I'm just quickly looking at an article that you guys have out there. Maybe you're familiar with it or not. Chief Revenue Officer makes field audits much simpler.
Yeah.
How does it, the people that are using it, how basically is it all the stuff that you just said, or is there something specific on that article you want to touch on?
Well, I think what it is too is like, okay, yeah. So how this gets made easier is this: when you have a paper checklist, right, or a paper audit, anything, it's always the lowest common denominator thing. Like they can only fit so much room on a piece of paper, and it's always the lowest common denominator, and that's not great. One of the things that makes us unique in this space is that we have the best business logic engine around. So we can build things like we call dynamic checklists. And a dynamic checklist is a checklist that automatically conforms itself to the location you're going to. So what that means is you get one checklist, which makes it easier to report off of, manage, all that stuff. But for the end user, when I go to this location here, that's got a parking lot and bathrooms and signage because it's a freestanding location and like whatever, strip center, that checklist changes for that location so that it captures everything that needs to be at that location. But if I go to, let's say, like a mall location that doesn't have as much, doesn't have bathrooms, doesn't have any of that other stuff, it's just a counter and a back room, the same checklist goes, oh, I don't need any of that. And it just conforms to that. So just by doing that one thing, you're always getting the perfect checklist or inspection for that location, which means that the person filling it out doesn't have to think, they just have to do. Okay, check this, check this, check this. They don't have to go, well, is that a freezer? Is that a walk-in? Is that thing important or is that not important? You can take that kind of like stress out of the process. The other part of having a digital checklist is you can do things you can't do on paper. I have like a little help section on every question that's optional. You can put in job aids, links to videos, training materials, standards, so that as the person's walking through doing this checklist, they can literally see they have every piece of information they would ever need there to make the proper decision. And you can cross-utilize all your training materials there. So you're actually looking at what is the actual standard for the company? What is safe? How do I do this? And then the third part of that is we can take people through corrective actions in line. So here's the thing, like we deal with a lot of safety and compliance, whether it be in automotive, dental, whatever. There's government agencies paying attention to some of the stuff that we're doing. Well, food safety is an example of that's not something I can identify at 10:45. Hey, this is like, this sauce is 60 degrees and is basically just a bacteria breeding ground. I'll deal with that after lunch, right? I'll just put a pin in that and move on with my day. Now you're about to serve this to 200 people at lunch. You could get some people sick. You can't put a pin in it. So we have the ability to make people deal with stuff in real time, and fix things before they affect customers. And that's the whole point, right? Like the whole point of the checklist is controlling what you can control, but it's about, you're never going to be perfect. So what I do is when I identify an issue, that's not bad. What's bad is if I don't solve the issue before it affects customers, right? So if I identify there's a problem, I go, oh, this sauce is too cold, go throw it on the stove for 5 minutes, get it up to 165 and then put it back. Problem solved, man. No big deal, right? No harm, no foul. I actually like to see that happen because I know that my team is like identifying issues and solving them before they affect customers. And that's what it all boils down to: controlling what you can control, right?
So Tommy, how are you going to market? Meaning, like, how are you getting new logos to come on board? Obviously, you're using podcasts, right? Or
yeah,
have you've been doing them for a while? Like, how's that been working out for you?
So
obviously not that well with this one, but
well, your listener will really enjoy this episode, and it should be fun. No, what's it called? So I have my own podcast, which I do, and I do that really from a perspective of making content quicker. So I write most of the blogs for our company, and blogs take 8 to 12 hours of time to write well. I got to edit them. I write them all out. Then I go back and go, holy hell, what the hell was I saying here? And then I'm just banging around on them for a couple of days. And then I finally get them out. And now I'm at a point where like, I kind of go where I'll write like 6 or 8 blogs in like a month. And then I stop for 3 or 4 months, get some new ideas, come back and hit it. Podcasting is great because podcasting for my podcast, it's just an easy way to create content. Get somebody on, do an hour interview, spend 20 minutes putting the thing together, get it launched on SoundCloud, and I'm done. So it's just a quicker way to generate content for the site. But then I wanted to talk at conferences, right? Because I like to talk. I was a stand-up comic for a lot of years. I like to get in front of people.
You're a funny guy.
Yeah. So I just I want to make some conversations. But the conference industry, it's so expensive to talk at a conference. Like very few of the people that you see talking at the conferences you go to did not pay to play, right? And they are a silver sponsor of the convention. They had to have a booth. They had to stand there for 3 days, blah, 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 and then they get like a 20-minute speech, which who knows how many people will get into it. And I thought to myself, man, I don't want to do all that. That seems horrible. But what I do want to do is get in front of the same groups of people. And I feel like these specialty podcasts, right, are great. The same guy that's going to that conference and is going to sit there and listen to me speak is going to listen to me in the airport on a podcast on his way to that conference. And it was way more cost effective to just get a podcast agent and get out there and start selling my wares.
Well, hopefully we're giving some content out there instead of a sales pitch, right?
Yeah, no, and that's all I want to do. Like, I like to talk about the platform, but what I really want to talk about is operations management as a theory, because it's new, because we've never had the ability to do this kind of stuff because we never had the technology. Look at the McDonald's brothers had started McDonald's today. They would 1000% have implemented my platform or a platform like mine to do this, because they would have gone, there's a giant hole in our visibility into what's happening in these businesses. Let's fill that with technology. The reality is that they started in the 40s and 50s and they didn't have that technology. And so they did the next best thing, which was systematize everything, train the hell out of everything, and then build paper systems to track stuff, right? But then, like I said, over time, those paper systems no one ever looked at them. And they just kind of got a bad rap. But I mean, that's the best they could do at the time with the technology that they had. But now we're making this huge leap. Like for the first time in the world, I'm taking this black hole, which is human activity, and I'm putting it into a database where you can report off of it,
Yeah. Tommy, how the hell do you get a hold of a restaurant owner? I would imagine you're dealing more with chains and whatnot, but there's nothing worse than trying to get time with them, and in the time that you do get, they're not paying attention at all.
Oh yeah, because they're in the restaurant and like 50 people come up and asking for their keys. Hey, can I get your keys real quick, Bob? So we generally don't work with a lot of single unit operators. We have a couple. The ones that are most successful with us are the guys that are like those big restaurants that make 5-10 million a year, like destination restaurants, because they actually have enough different teams working there that they actually need some accountability. But if a mom and pop, sub shop, they don't need it because they're there 7 days a week anyways, right? They look at it as, I'm just making more work for myself. Now, I will say, and that's, so that's tough. Like the big issue is this, and I do truly believe that this is a big problem in the industry, is the managers aren't delegating this stuff to the employees, and they should be. They should be going and saying, hey, because our system offers real-time collaboration, meaning that multiple people could be in a checklist simultaneously, right? So kind of like a Google Doc or like a, Office 365, we could both be in the same spreadsheet, very similar to that. And I do think just in general for operators across the board, you have a team. They have stations in your business. You should go in, and instead of you trying to do this entire checklist, for 45 minutes in your busiest time of day, which is the setup period right before you open for business, you need to go and do parts of it, then hand a tablet to the guys and go, hey, do your station, hand it to this person, have them do their station. I'm going back to do these other things. And we can all get it done in 15 minutes and actually get the benefit of it, right? Versus me pencil whipping it because I just have to get it done in or I don't have time to actually do it. So that's a huge issue. But you asked a question about how do you contact these guys? It is horrible. It is so hard to find these guys because the guys you want to talk to, like we mostly want multi-location businesses. So we can call corporate, but corporate, it depends if they're franchisee or corporate owned. And that's for any of these businesses. If they're franchisee, then they may have ultimate power like McDonald's, where they can literally do anything like the czars, or they might be like, they might have their hands tied on everything and all they can really do is just make suggestions and hope that people kind of follow them, right? And that's based off their FDD, which is that franchise agreement they have. And then, so that's a big thing. So you try to call them, but then generally franchisors, they only care about sales. So they don't really care about profits and whatnot. So they only look at systems that are going to increase sales or sales tracking. And so they don't want to battle it out with the franchisees either. So they're very reticent unless they think this is going to increase their revenue to push anything down into the world. So we try to call them, but then we also try to call the big multi-unit franchisees. Those are the guys that really care about this stuff because they care about sales, but they care about profits too, because that's where they make their money, right? Is off the profits. A franchisor just gets a percentage of sales. So that's why they only care about sales. Because if you sell $1 million, they get 7% of that and they're happy. But like if I have a restaurant, I care about the actual profits that come out the bottom of that thing, because that's where I make my money. Like sales are great, but I need profits. So franchisors are a good group to go to. The problem with those guys are they got a business like Tommy Corp. And you go, Tommy Corp, and they're on LinkedIn. They don't even have a website for Tommy Corp. They just use, whatever their franchisor's website is and all their hiring tools and stuff. So you can't even go to Tommy Corp's website. You have no idea who it is. And by the way, Tommy Corp owns 200 Pizza Huts and is exactly who you want to talk to, but you don't know that because you're just like, who is this guy? So it is a lot of like legwork and calling and list building and stuff like that to get in touch with these guys. But what's cool is that we've been here for 7.5 years, right? We're a bootstrap startup. We started with our own money, didn't make salaries for a bunch of years, built this thing from scratch. We've been out there for 7.5 years, prolifically creating content. And so now when the big chains look at this stuff, they call us. So that's what's really cool, but we still have to do a lot of outbound to get people to talk to us,
You guys are basically national account execs, right?
Yeah.
Right. So there's no small business group. There's no mid-market.
Nope.
You guys are national account execs. And when they use your product, Tommy, what's like the number one, number two thing that gets fixed right away? Maybe not fixed, but the job of the leader is to remove obstacles. What obstacles do you see get removed when they start to use your product?
So I think the biggest obstacle is for like a corporate, whoever purchases it, is they now, like on day one, when people start filling out those checklists, all the reports populate, right? So like immediately on day one, you can see what's actually happening in your business. And that's a big thing that I preach. We collect what we do. There's like some data you're going to look at and be really sad about, and other pieces of data you're going to be really excited about, And I just say, all the data is good, man. Don't freak out about it. It's all good. It's just used for different things. You know what I mean? So you're like literally after the first lunch, you're like, oh my gosh, I can see that everyone did their checklist. I can see that we're having an issue with this. I didn't even know that was an issue. Okay, that's easy to fix. We can address that. So the first obstacle is like, you just go, wow, holy heck. Like this is easy to do. I can do it on my phone, right? So that's the first obstacle remove. The second obstacle remove is like what you're going to start to get rid of when you're using the platform, if you're using it right, is all of those systematic little problems that you've just been dealing with or ignoring as a manager. every time you go, well, that's not right, it's going to go, well, take a comment, take a photo, do this, do that. And so what ends up happening is all this low hanging fruit stuff that's happening in all these different locations you have, it gets identified every single shift. And then eventually somebody goes, hey, dude, I got to fix this. I'm tired of having to put a photo in here and saying this leaks every day. So I'm just going to get someone out here to fix it so I don't have to keep saying that. And so you can start, your team start addressing their little low hanging fruit issues because they just don't want to, like, it's embarrassing to say I've got a leak every day in the same thing and no one ever dealt with it or whatever it might be, right?
So you find the owner, they buy it.
Yeah.
How do you keep an eye on adoption? Because the owner says, okay, here you go, you got to use this, and then the manager at the store says, fuck that.
Yeah. So exactly. Okay. Yes. So, and that's who kills. By the way, that's who kills most of these deals. I can't tell you how many people that we have sold this to, owners, VPs of ops, they are fully bought in on the concept. They know they need to do this. I had a donut chain that came back 3 times. They bought it. They never used it. They turned it off. They came back 6 months later. They bought it again, never used it. You would be amazed at the amount of people who cannot get their teams to do something. It's mind-boggling. Those guys, it's those middle manager guys, they can kill the deal for us because, and they're very sneaky about how they do it too. Oh, the teams are too busy at the store level right now. I don't know that we can throw any more change on them. And you'd be amazed at the amount of people too that are in these jobs. They know they're doing a horrible job, and they know that this is like putting a light and all the cockroaches run, underneath everything. And they don't want the visibility on what's actually happening. Whereas and that's just a scared mentality, but you could also flip that mentality and go, man, we have never had the tools that we needed to manage this thing. You can just change the narrative. We've never had the tools. We're so excited about this because it's going to allow us to identify what's actually happening and we can go address it. So we've been working in a black hole. You never gave us the tools. You can just totally flip the script on it, right? But yeah, those middle managers can kill some of these deals. Or they'll say, here's another big one they say is, it takes too long. And what that means, that's code for, I used to just pencil whip this or not do it, which took me no time at all. And now you're forcing me to do something which is longer than what it is to lie and not do it, right? So it took me a second to go, yes, 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 yes. And now you're actually making me do something that takes 20 minutes. So it technically does take longer, but it's not because it's actually harder to do. It's because you're actually forcing someone to do it, right? So those are all the things. And I always tell people too, I'm like, if you've got an employee who's arguing against, even if it's sneakily against more data, more systems, or more accountability, they're making an argument against those. That's the wrong person for today's business, right?
Well, those are the ones that are ripping you off. I mean, there's so many, they like gray areas. That's why.
Yeah, they want to hide. They just want you to pay them $200K a year and still get the same results, and they don't know why.
I don't know if, I haven't, gone into your product, but I would think that the next level, if it's not there, would be gamification where you can reward and, employee of the month or something, give rewards for that. Is that on the table?
Yeah, it's something that we're looking at in the future. It's one of those things where that's all driven by the culture of the business, right? Like if the culture rewards those kinds of things, then gamification is a great way to do it. But you can't employ gamification in a toxic culture and expect it to change anyone's mind on anything. And I like gamification, and you can track, like what people track in our system is what we call the completed percentage or checklist compliance, right? And that's how many of so we schedule all the checklists, right? So not only with the schedule tells you when you need to get it done by, but it has an operating window in it where it opens up, let's say from 10 to 11:30, and then it closes. And the reason for that is I don't want someone to come in at 7 a.m., grab a cigarette and a coffee, sit on the back patio or the chair and just pencil whip their checklist for the next 12 hours. I want them to do it when it's operationally significant for the business. It does me no good if you told me everything was fine for dinner at 7 a.m. I actually need you to check it so we don't get anyone sick and that we take care of people and they get hot gravy and all the things they expect. So like, you know what I mean? So part of that is we have this completed percentage. It's how well you're doing at completing your checklist off the schedule. And that's always a big thing at the beginning, because people have to actually change how they spend their shift when they get OpsAnalyitica, because they used to just bang out their checklist at the beginning of their shift and they had a whole routine. And now we're saying, no, you got to go do it when it's supposed to be done. So then they have to start organizing their day differently and moving things around, because they actually have to do the job the way it was meant to be done versus how they've kind of gotten into a rut of doing it. And which is fine. There's always like this like little middle ground at the beginning where people aren't doing the checklist on the schedule because they can't get them. They haven't shifted how they work their shift yet. So then they're pulling them off like the checklist list, which is just where you do one-offs, but then they don't get credit. And then they're all pissed off because they're like, hey, I did this thing at 4. Well, it was due at 11:30. So no, you don't get credit for it, you know, but they manage off that completed percentage and just try to get their people to go do the checklist on time, if you will.
So Tom, you've been doing this for 7 years, and
Yeah.
we all know in software that if they're not using the product, they're not going to renew it.
Yeah.
Do you have a success team yet, or do you have anybody keeping an eye on the stats that, hey man, I haven't had a login in like 3 months and I better look at this?
Yeah. So, you know, what we do is, so what we do implementation packages, right? Because and this is actually for one of our clients in Michigan. He told us this. He's like, we fail at so many of these software programs because they expect us to implement it ourselves. We don't have that skill set, and we're busy running restaurants. And so we end up doing it poorly, and then nobody uses it and we get no value from the system, right? And so we have a whole implementation program. So you pay for an implementation, it's 90 days. We take all of your stuff, we digitize it, we put it in the system, we train your admins, and then we have that only takes like depending on how big you are, a week or 2, right? Yeah. And then after that's done, you have basically 75 more days to sit there and iterate and ask for additional checklists and changes to be made. But basically our goal in that implementation is just to turn it over. You're going to get a fully configured, fully functioning, fully ready to go, like plug and play implementation of our solution where you don't have to do anything. We'll even help train your team if you want, so that you can literally start using the platform on day 1. And then after that's over, we monitor for the first 6 or 8 weeks how well the people are doing at adopting it. And if they're not doing well, we see those numbers, we can go in and call them and, hey, what's going on? And a lot of times we move faster than the business can move, because it's all we do is this, and there are 50 different things going on. But here's what's crazy is that, and knock on wood, I got to knock on some wood here.
Yeah, right here.
We have like, yeah, exactly. We have very low churn. Like we just don't, you know, I think a normal SaaS business, like 2%, maybe 5. Yeah. Ours is like less than 1%. So, and what always amazes me, because, you know, I remember when it was just me and my business partner and we were doing everything, and like people wouldn't use the platform or whatever. And now it's like, it's so easy to use, and we do such a good job of setting it up that sometimes we'll just move on to the next client. Then I'm like, man, I wonder if these guys are even using it yet. And then I'll just go check like 2 weeks later and they got 5,000 checklists done. And you're like, OMG. Like that's like, as a founder who remembers it from the very beginning when we were babies, I'm just like always amazed. I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
That's what I want to get to, Tommy. He's 7 years old, and you know, you and your buddy got this thing going, and you get to a certain level where you need help. To the other startups that are watching this now, your business isn't theirs, but it's like, oh wow, I need help. Like, you got a sales guy first, I'm guessing.
And then first guy was a sales guy.
Yep.
The second okay, so we had original team, 2 developers, 2 operator owners, and in the beginning, like year 1 and year 2, we did everything. Like we implemented, we did marketing. I mean, every job was done by the founders. That was it. Then the first guy we hired was a sales guy, because what we realized is that between the 2 of us, we were only selling maybe 40 hours a week. And like you needed growth to do everything else. And so we just said, we got to get a salesperson in here. Like no matter what we do, we had a development team. We were doing the operations. We needed someone who could spend 40 plus hours a week, 100% focused on growing the business, because it wasn't an afterthought for us, but we were at this position where we would sell something and then we had to go implement it and we had to deal with everything else that came with onboarding somebody on. So sales guy was first. Then the next guy we got was a guy to help us do implementations to make those quicker. And that guy's overseas and he's been with us, almost 4 years now. His anniversary is coming up here in the next couple of weeks. And he lives and works in the Philippines and works nights and then helps us out.
Perfect.
Then we got, then the next employee was an American person to a domestic person, I guess, to run implementations. So now we had somebody who could get all the data from the clients and get it implemented into the system. And then after that, it was more developers and more salespeople. And all we're really going to hire is going to be salespeople and developers. And then when the customer sat guys can't keep up with the amount of business coming in, we'll hire more customer success people to help do those implementations. But that's going to be kind of the growth plan. And I'm not trying to overload me with like a bunch of like big wig salaries or anything like that right now. I just want
chief revenue officer.
Yeah. I don't need CFOs and CROs and marketing people and any of that. Like, I just need people to drive new business in and fulfill that business,
So what's the head count at now?
I think we're like, at today, we're like at 8 people.
8. Okay. So it's like you still can, founder led, the culture is there. You can keep an eye on things and, you'll hit your 50. Once you hit 50, you hit 50, then it's like, it gets a little sketchy. Then you hit 100 and then, so now what's the, for the people that are listening, all my buddies out there, the Spins of the world, the Pop Menus, what's your exit plan? Who would you like to go with?
I think realistically, so what we're doing is operations analytics, and I have like, so here's my thing. Have you read The Adaptation Advantage yet, or have you listened to that?
No, I have not.
So I've only gone through the first third of it because I feel like most business books, and I don't know this is true of them, but most business books, the first third's great, and then the next 2 thirds are just regurgitating the first third. But this one's all about
like a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the workplace of the future, right? And what they're saying is that you have to be able to adapt to the new workplace, that anything that's going to be rule-based is going to be automated, and that you're going to be working, like your job is going to morph, right? There's going to be automation, there's going to be workflow, there's going to be robots, there's going to be sensors, and then there's going to be you in there doing what a human can do, which is trying to bring correlations together and figure things out and manage all this stuff, right? And I kind of look at OpsAnalyitica as like, if we look at like these multi-location businesses, we're going to have robots. We're already partnering with a robot guy, right? There's going to be robots. There's going to be sensors. We're about to release our IoT platform to the marketplace. So we'll be able to collect sensor data. There's going to be human beings. And then there's going to be the internet and cash registers and other sources of data coming in. So the robots, the humans, the sensors, the internet, and the POS or whatever, web store, all going to be bringing data into the business. The people that are going to be doing things in the business are going to be the humans and the robots, right? Those 2 groups of people are going to be doing the actual like boxing of things or delivering of food, whatever it is. Somebody's got to have the system, because these are all going to be siloed at the beginning, right? Somebody's got to have the system that can take all this data in, figure out what's going on, and then tell the robots and the people what to do. Like, and so that's where I'm trying to be, is that conduit in the middle that can figure all that stuff out and then tell people what to do and then manage them doing it. Because if you have robots, and so that's great, you have a robot. Well, someone's got to do preventative maintenance on that robot. Someone's got to make sure it's running. Someone's got to tell it to stop dropping burger patties, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is. So I feel like that's where I'm trying to be. And I feel like probably a Toast or an Oracle or some big tech company who's got a POS system, IBM potentially. One of those guys will eventually go, hey, we want to be in that part of this business, and we'll just buy their customers out and do the whole thing.
Right. Got it, Tommy. Tommy, what's the best way for IBM and Oracle to get a hold of you and watch your podcasts and our viewers and all that?
I think it's going to be, you hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. There's only one Tommy Yionoulis out there, or go to opsanalytica.com, which I'm sure you'll have in the show notes, and just open up a chat and contact us, because I just want to talk to people. My job role has morphed over the years. All I'm about right now is finding new use cases for the platform. So I truly want to talk to as many people as possible. If you're sitting there listening to this thing going, man, I wonder if this could work for me. Don't wonder, get in touch with me and let's just chat it out. I mean, I'm talking to like medical recyclers. I'm talking to paint recyclers. I'm talking to everybody, because every business is just a series of processes that need to be managed efficiently so that you can be scalable, right? And so I just want to chat with you and just learn what you're doing. I have a pair of tennis shoes upstairs that are covered in weird paint because I went and toured a paint recycling facility here in Denver about 6 months ago, and my shoes are totally stained. But it was like the coolest afternoon ever because I got to watch what they were dealing with. You know what I mean? It was so neat. So I just look forward to that.
Tommy Yionoulis, thank you so much for coming on the SAASholes today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate it.
Our show is supported by listeners and viewers just like you. We'd like to thank Demand Farm Winalytics, Trent S. and Aaron J. for their continued support. DemandFarm.com, unlock key account growth, smart software to bring account planning and relationship intelligence into your CRM, making key account management practice data-driven, predictable, and scalable. Go to DemandFarm.com, ask for Iron Man. Hey, check out Brett Keltner's Revenue Acceleration Playbook Masterclass at Winalytics.com. In 8 weeks, help your sales and go-to-market teams start to build the mindset and skills needed to succeed in a new buyer environment. Sign your team up for the masterclass today at Winalytics.com. If you'd like to help us out to improve the quality of our content, go to Patreon.com/SAASholes.